Yes, and we are on live right now. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are scrolling through Facebook and if you see us, I'm actually the host, your host today, Vicky Esther Cheng, right here from Singapore, bringing to you State of Our World, a new podcast season. It is 9:37 p.m. here, and you are looking at either my professional profile on Facebook, or it's going to be shared now to my group, which is called the Platinum Platform, and you can join freely. The Platinum Platform, you can see Lillian Cardwell here from Pennsylvania and myself here. Join freely, and we welcome everyone from all walks of life, from all corners of the globe to be part of us for our podcast, Write to Me, about the most urgent issues in your world right now. It could be poverty, it could be your children, it could be money, it could be inflation, it could be housing, it could be sleeping in the streets, it could be violence, it could be crime, it could be jobs taken away from you, it could be the struggles of small businesses, it could be the war, or it could be something to do with gender, domestic violence, anything that is most urgent in your world. Write to us, write to me particularly, at Vicky, VIKI, at gdmeducation.com. Vicky at gdmeducation.com. And we are here live on Facebook. I'm here tonight. It's Monday evening, and I think we've got Monday morning across the globe where Lillian is. Before we start officially, Lillian, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the audience, wherever they are, particularly this part of the world, who you are, where are you?
Good morning. My name is Lillian Sarah. That's what the F stands for. Caldwell, with you to distinguish me from the masses of Smiths and Jones. And I live in a small city called Warrensville, and that's spelled Wernersville, that borders the infamous Reading, Pennsylvania, where Reading Railroad shows up on the Monopoly board. And I live in a senior community with seniors more ancient than I am. That explains why I'm still working. And I own and operate my own internet talk radio station. It has been up for approximately 19 years. We started in 2005. We have now over 10 million listeners. Thank you, Vicki. And we're heard in 177 countries, including we're always at war with, at least war of words. Hopefully it will remain just the war of words. And we have found, much to our staff astonishment, that 57% of all the males in Eurasia listen to us, which says a lot, but I'm not going to go down that trail today. Yeah. So that's about it. It's all talk. We have no music unless somebody's brave enough to sing, and we always encourage singing. So that's about it. I have 3 grandchildren. 2 of them are going to be graduating from high school, and the little one made his entry into middle school this year and riding the bus.
Thank you so much, Lillian. I think this is an opportunity. We also do a little bit promotion of our new Gold Nugget series, Communications as Superpower. I think people are already awaiting for that. Yes, and also
for Gold Nuggets on podcasting, and yeah. Also I've been asked to co-host with Vicky on another project on the superpowers of communication.
Yeah.
And I've also been asked to work with Vicky on a new project to have your memoirs published. And don't worry if you can't write. You give me the facts figures. I get your tone of voice, and
Yeah.
away we go.
Yeah. So we will talk a lot about the memoirs, maybe at a separate podcast or on your radio, Passionate World Talk Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, go search Passionate World Talk Radio, where Lillian has over 10 million listeners cumulatively, a million listeners per year, and 100,000 visitors to her website per week. That's a total feat. So Lillian, today, you're a very special invite for this podcast season, State of Our World, and you're who is more appropriate to talk about world issues than you yourself, who has lived through 70 years of your life. And I would like to start today for our show, State of Our Life, Humanity for Better or for Worse. I'm going to quote a headline that I saw, and then of course I searched online about that. Microsoft today announced it is laying off 650 employees across its gaming division, mostly in corporate and support roles. And Microsoft says no games are being canceled or studios closed. Now, looking at that headline, that is a big glaring sign for me and a big red light bulb. And I looked at the people who actually made comments on it on X, the social town hall X by, Elon Musk. And someone said, you understand that when a trust fund immediately adds that no games are being canceled, it looks like you're saying layoffs are good and they're fine. Okay, this is the first person who said that. And then another person said, wow, the world's richest company with records profits, who saw this coming? Laying off 650 people immediately across its gaming section, and the world goes on without you. So, ladies and gentlemen, today the world, state of our world, humanity for better or for worse. I'm going to start off with this news, and this is just so emblematic of our times right now, Lillian. I'm just going to say this. I'm raised, I come from, and I live in a highly capitalistic society. A highly capitalistic society where, like what we were talking last week, that is the pillar of capitalism is meritocracy, right? We don't care who you are, what you do, you've got to go and get the prize. And whomever is the fastest, whomever is capable will get the prize. No questions asked. In economics, it's called ceteris paribus. It just means all factors holding constant. If you're the best, you get the prize. So that's the nature of capitalism. And I hear on CNBC and on Bloomberg, it says, get over it. That's the nature of capitalism. Yes, and this is something that I grew up with, Lillian. And I want to share this with ladies and gentlemen. I grew up in a highly competitive environment. Even as a girl, we're told to get 100 marks for spelling. When you're really young, you're 5 years old, you got to get 100 marks for your mathematics. You go for your Olympics competition for mathematics, your English competition, your writing creative competition and tests, and you make sure you emerge number one. Okay, if you don't emerge number one, you better make sure you get to the best class in your school. Okay, I don't know, maybe you've got for your level, you've got 12 classes. You make sure you squeeze yourself to the first class, which is the elitist class. And you are ingrained in this system. You are told unconsciously you've got to be a high achiever or an overachiever or an ambitious achiever. And if you don't, you are called and labeled as an underachiever, failure, a loser. So you know, as I become an educator these years, I strive so hard to get people to understand that this is the world we're living in, competition. You've got to be best in everything we do because we owe it to ourselves, right? We're given the talent, we're given our resources, our arms, our legs, everything that we need, equal opportunity. When it says ding, 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 the race starts, you go. So, I mean, I live in this world, and I think there's nothing wrong in being successful. In fact, if you're successful, you're a millionaire, you should be rewarded and you should not be penalized because it comes from your hard work. And I like to say this to SMEs that have risen through the competition. They've worked and they've sweated so hard. Now, this as compared to, I'm talking about the top 10% of the world's wealth that is being in the hands of these X number of companies or this X number of billionaires. Now, I'm going to juxtapose that. I'm not talking about people who are struggling. I am talking about people who are struggling, right? Because there is only so much space at the top. And there's so much space that you can strive for in this thing called social mobility concept. And we believe so much in the concept of social mobility. And Lillian, you're going to talk about technology singularity. I'm going to hear what you're going to say about the world. This is the world that I grew up in. You know, I hope I can share this with your audience in Passionate World Talk Radio. But when I get to see Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and the biggest companies in the world, when they write an email, or Microsoft, when they write an email to their staff and they say, hey, you don't have to come back tomorrow. You know, we needed all your talent. We've built our company up. We are now making records profit. We're good. We can say goodbye to you. And there they say goodbye to you via the email, via the Zoom. Now, I'm just going to say that, you know, that wakes me up suddenly. It suddenly wakes me up because I have not thought of this issue about corporate, I call it corporate autocracy. Something that I came up with is a terminology that the company has absolute power over your livelihood, your bread that you're bringing home to your children, right? And that check that you need to pay your mortgage every month. And the plans that you made for the next 10, 20 years for your children. And you are there struggling so hard, working for your life, and you're told to get 100 marks because you are being told when you get there, you will get the prize. But now I'm going to say that for this generation or for the future generation that you come through the world right now. And if we keep telling people or young people, work hard, do your best, and when they arrive there, they see nothing. Now that's danger. You say, hey, it's a total lie. There's nothing for us here. Well, a few big questions. What are we leaving for the world, for our kids, for our future generation? Are we giving them a lie that, hey, you work so hard, you go through the ranks, and you've got your degrees and your masters, and you've got this accumulated of certificates and trainings, and then you're gonna get that kind of social mobility as you go up the ladder, and then but when you get there, you say, hey, mom, you told me to get 100 marks, but hey, there's nothing here for me. You know, I'm afraid that will come a day for that generation that we are leaving behind. Number one. Now, number two, it also gives me the big question. This is almost like an exam 5,000 word essay I can discuss with you, Lillian, but I really want to talk because I think you understand where I'm coming from. I'm starting to question the pillars of some of these very basic suppositions that we are armed with when we are really young. That when you grow, you go through this kind of huge, stiff-necked rat race, blinding, that you know you're gonna get there, you know you're gonna get there, but when you get there, it's taken away from you, and no one's gonna apologize. And no one's gonna say thank you. Now, that's really, really dangerous for the world that we're gonna leave behind. That world that we had in the 1980s, the 1990s, when there was a booming of the world economy, it was growing on single digits, double digits. The world economies are growing. You've got hiring from the banks, from the greatest, biggest company for world infrastructure, but suddenly it may just disappear. And I'm not kidding you, because it's happening right now in front of my eyes. But juxtapose this, what I'm going to say, Lillian, on a micro level, imbalance of power in a corporate world. When you, as a worker, as an employment, you walk into Microsoft, you walk into the office of the biggest companies, Amazon, wherever they are. You've got an Amazon office here, investment office in Singapore, you've got a Facebook office in Singapore, you get employed because your whole life you just tell yourself, I want to work in Microsoft, I want to be their chief technology officer, I want to be heading their R&D company or the R&D division. You aim for that. Whatever your dream, when you get there, what I'm going to say is, you suddenly find yourself given a contract as someone who's going to walk into a huge corporation. There's something that I realized. Now, you cannot bargain for your terms and conditions because you're given that contract. And when they ask you to leave, in an email, in a Zoom, which is what happened at the beginning of the year, because there were so many layoffs from the technology companies, and all these Indians coders have no jobs right now, suddenly they found themselves out of job tomorrow with no recourse of action. And I'm not talking about unions here. I'm talking about a very open understanding about imbalance of power when a big, huge corporation comes in, when you have got no right and no bargaining power because you're just a cog in the huge machinery. So I just want to kind of wake up a little bit. I kind of like look at the world. Now, why am I saying this? Then any questions before I go on, Lynn? Now,
I think that,
okay, let me just continue. I'm just talking about
go right ahead.
Yeah, in general, right? Whatever talent
Yes.
you're given. Now juxtapose this. And I'm not advocating anything. I'm just stating my observation. Now, when I was living in Europe, and there's a lot of European countries are maybe pseudo socialists. They have got a lot of social welfare taking care of their people, which is so different from America and this part of the world, like in Singapore, which is absolute capitalism. Now imagine this, Lillian. When I was living there, I was sitting in the trains going from one point of the city to another part of the city, because I don't drive, which is surprising because I failed many times. And the train just stopped in its tracks. And they've got an announcement from a foreign language, and I didn't know what, and everybody just walked down. And I walked down, and the people kind of chatted and say, oh, there is a big demonstration. And I was surprised. In the middle of nowhere, the train stopped, and the driver just walked out, and the passengers just walked out. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm going for an appointment with the banks. And you just leave me there. But you know what phenomenon, Lillian, I would like to share with you is that, which is a big observation. I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm not giving a nominative judgment. However, what I'm saying is, I observed and I noticed none of the passengers got angry. They were stopped in his tracks and everybody walked down, and they walked from one part of the city to wherever part of the city, I don't know, but they needed a train. But nobody complained and they walked calmly. And I was like, oh, and I was like using my 4-letter words. How can you do this to me? You know, you've got a huge demonstration and left me in the middle of nowhere where no buses or taxis. But I understood now because I looked from another paradigm quietly. Why do we not give understanding to a society for that? Teachers who protest, teachers unions who protest, taxi drivers who protested against Uber, bus drivers, truck drivers protested when the fuel prices went up, for example. And there I am getting really angry when the city stopped in the middle of a huge demonstration. So I kind of like, now I look back, I'm looking at, hey, I'm just silly because I should have looked at two sides of the paradigm. Because now I look at it, Microsoft laid off 650 people, and they can tell the world, hey, our studios are still okay. No games are disrupted. Your games go on and they can still buy the latest products. And I'm just looking at the imbalance of power and something I coined up, which is called corporate autocracy. Because you've got an individual here, like a teacher, who are given tons and tons of work at that mediocre, meager salary with no bargaining power, and they've got to work overtime, doing so much work with so little respect, and got so much complaints from the students, parents, and the schools, or the bus drivers who've got laid off with no power and no recourse of action because their contract says so. So I'm just observing right now on both sides. Extreme, pure capitalism, the nature of capitalism, we live in it, like it or not, love it or leave it. The other side, they did recognize situations like that do occur. So for example, if you're in a country that has a lot of social protection, companies are not supposed to just fire you without justification. They have to justify, or employees can go to the court, to get a certain recourse of action. So I'm just looking at news like that. So that's why this is what I'm saying. Our podcast, State of Our World, Humanity, for better or for worse. We're going to see more of that as AI comes in. We're going to see more of that as the machines take over our jobs. Because if the machines can do the job for 2 or 3 people, why don't companies do that? They're going to reduce their costs. And laying off workers, I always say, is the easiest thing to do, right? Instead of redesigning your jobs, redesigning your work process, redesigning the infrastructure, the business infrastructure, the organizational infrastructure, or your business strategies vis-a-vis your competitors. So this is what I want to say. I am worried about the next generation, that whatever we leave off, a lot of issues are brought up. When we promise the future generation, work hard, there's going to be social mobility. You're going to get your success. But when they get out there and they say to you, hey, mom, hey, grandma, there's nothing for me here. And I think you know what I'm trying to say, Lillian. It's a very, very dangerous position we are in, because it's going to cause, I think one of your presidential candidates 2 cycles ago, Andrew Yang, he was saying there's going to be violence in the streets when people do not get the minimum pay, and when jobs are taken away. He said there's going to be violence. And I think that will happen because people are going on riots. You can see that in the news in the US. Inflation, people find that prolonged periods of unemployment, prolonged periods of disillusionment, prolonged periods of hopelessness make people think there's nothing to lose. Now, I think we are going into this very big direction in the world right now. And I think the world, people like us, we need to talk about it because no one else would talk about it, Lillian. So with that, on that note, I know it sounds a little bit pessimistic. It sounds like the end of the world is coming, but we still need to live for the next 10 years or the next 5 years. And this is already happening. So I want to say that the podcast State of the World, humanity for better or for worse, a lot of issues I talked about, it's happening and it's going to be worse because the machines are taking over. They're taking over artists' job. They're taking over graphic designers' job. They're taking over copywriters' job. They're taking over people who needs a lot of work that can be taken over. Videographers, advertisers, people who are doing commercials. So, and even movies, right? They're going into filmology already, you know, AI. So it's progressive, and we're seeing. And if you look at what's happening, a lot of is saying there's going to be something called the supremacy, the super intelligent AI, who's going to take over all kinds of human intelligence, and that is already happening in the making without us seeing and knowing. Lillian, so that is what I want to talk about. A lot of issues interplay in the story that I've observed. So over to you, Lillian.
Okay, I think humanity, as a rule, are lazy. Even if a problem is solvable, they put it off for as long as they possibly can get away with it. They do not like to exert themselves any more than they have to, for whatever the reason. That's number one. Number two, the decay of our business and business world has been going on since after World War II. Take the United States. Our grid system is in deplorable condition. And every 4 years, it's brought up how easy it would be for our enemies, and they're numerous, to really blow apart our structure because it is so decayed and out of date that it would be very easy to paralyze the US system. And everybody knows this, but we're not the only ones with this problem. Europe has it as well.
Yes.
We have lived through the prosperous moments.
Yeah.
And we have believed that whatever we did will live as long as we do and will never need to be repaired or fixed. Yeah. That's called belligerence. That's called arrogance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Lillian, we talked about last week. We left off with your very good quote that I said summed up the spirit of the season. State of our world, for better, or for humanity, for better or for good. You talked about technology singularity, and I read it up on ChatGPT. I relied on that, and I went to Wikipedia, and it talked about the famous thinkers, the thought leaders from the 1940s that talks about intelligence of machines, and artificial intelligence already at that time, that it will go through cycles. And these cycles, I know that because I studied them. They are almost like the Scrum technologies. You go through cycles, and cycles are refined. And these cycles of refinement of technology goes faster and faster until it supersedes human intelligence, with artificial super intelligence, and we will all be ruled by this artificial social intelligence, almost into a very desperate state of humanity. And that is something you brought up. So I'd like you to share this concept that you know that I'm delighted that you brought up, because I got an education from you. I went to look it up and I read it, and I want to share this with our audience. Tell us about Singularity 2025. I read that. Tell us about Singularity 2025, the date that they said, which is like what you say, 20 years from now. Human and machines equal to cyborgs, right? And
Yes,
then, and
F
yeah,
machine,
and I
F
also would,
human.
and I would like you to talk about something. I wanted you to um, tell us what you know about keep them stupid policies, the secret policies, keep them stupid. How they can control, I should say, forces to be, how they can control the people. And number three, I'd like to hear from you if you do have time. The third thing from you is I'm gonna bring up my notes because I do work on this. I would like you to talk about technology, singularity, keep them stupid, and also the final one, if you could tell us a little bit about the history of the wars, and then maybe it will give us some light into what's happening and what will come. Lillian, over to you.
Okay, well, let's, first of all, we've had these illusions or delusions, however you want to look at it, from all the science fiction that was written by the science fiction authors back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And if one read them all, and they were led by Asimov, who was a brilliant man, he was also a scientist before he
Yes.
became an author. And he came up with rules for his machines, his robots, that one had to adhere to at all times. And when you write good science fiction or fantasy, there are rules, ladies and gentlemen, that you must adhere to. Otherwise, you get into trouble with the literature and classical, if you want to put it that way, society in which they were brought up on certain tenets that have to be obeyed, whether you like it or not. And if you ever decide to become an author in the sense of fiction, you will find that even though these rules are not written in every single book of how to write, they are adhered to by every great science fiction author, because they tell you exactly what is permitted and what is not permitted. Now, myself, as a science fiction, fantasy, historical author, I can tell you that there are reasons why you have to follow them. And like the world of make-believe, the real world also has rules and principles that one must adhere to and cannot break, because if you break them, you're no longer civilized. Now, I'm not saying that you're a savage if you don't follow them, because every society, and I don't care how simple or how complex that society is, there are always unseen rules and policies one must adhere to, whether you like it or not. And a lot of our fears has always been the unknown. And out of our unknown, we have created monsters out of machines. And this was before the Industrial Revolution. Even as far back as the Greeks. They power are using gear shifts to interlock with each other with the movement of the wind. Take a look of how they do that in Holland. Go take a look at the inner workings of some of those old windmills and be shocked. They understood it. They may not have been able to produce it in the sophistication of the 21st century, but they certainly understood the mechanisms of what it took to create simple machines. That's number two. And number three, if you look at history, or I should say, when you look at history, our 21st century political and candidates or governments still thinks the way the ancient civilizations did. And us arrogant Westerners look down at those cultures and society which did not have a written language. But if you explore them further, it was only the ruling elite and the wealthy citizens who knew how to speak and transmit their thoughts, as compared to what they say, the dumb beasts who we control by the use of fear,
Yes.
ignorance, and beasts
Totally.
of burden. Yes. So it's not a new concept.
Yes, not a new concept. It's happening
way
everywhere.
And way before Marie Antoinette said, of course she didn't, let them eat cake, the Romans provided shows of men killing men, women killing women, beasts killing men, and feeding the spectators with bread, which is the equivalent of Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake. Because they knew if you kept a population fed and entertained, and you kept people focused on the fact that they are hungry, so they're focusing on their bellies, they are not going to cause you problems. And if you ruthlessly impale people, which is what crucifixion is, folks, you take nails and drive them into the flesh. Well, that's reminiscent of Vlad the Impaler. We've been facing torture from our rulers since the beginning of time. Not a new concept there, folks.
Yeah, and I would like to ask you, you know, we are living, we are living in these times whereby we thought that you're given humongous literacy and humongous understanding of the world through the media, you know, through your environment. A couple of things I want you to give me your thoughts, Lillian. Those, for example, I talked about corporate autocracy within a huge organization that can determine the future. And I'm not talking about SMEs, those, you know, mom and pop shops that's down the street.
I understand.
So I'm just trying to say that using this autocracy concept for countries that we know, dictatorship, etc., it is much easier to rule over people when people's critical thinking is taken away. Number one.
Absolutely.
Number two, and also the use of the mainstream media, you know, by the Rupert Murdochs, etc., to determine the media narrative, or the media determines the narrative, it's really the way the story should be told. Like what you say, only those in power will determine the stories, right? Like what we say, the legacy, the books, the history lessons, the history is being told. And it's pervasive in our world right now. And that's why podcasts like this are very important, Lillian. Because suddenly, if you look at what I'm trying to say and a few things I'm raising, we are living in this technology, democratization of technology in our hands, that we don't have to pay for this. And we are in a way threatening the existence of the mainstream media, which is already, because the advertising dollar is going to citizen journalism podcasts, people who are there and not at the top. That's one thing. They are being challenged. Number two, it also means that we have been living in the world that was seen through the eyes of what the world they want us to see and view, as opposed to
Absolutely.
what it should be.
Yes.
So as I start to read and look at international news, etc., I start to feel that there's a lot of lies in the media. People who are controlling the media. Of course, you have the Rupert Murdochs and you've got the right and the left. So I'm not even talking about politics right now, and of course, the media is controlled a lot by governments, politicians, etc. And taking away that critical thinking, and I think this is the big argument in America now in the election, isn't it? About people not knowing real truth of issues, because it's being geared towards a particular fashion.
It's been
So
blurred.
it's been blurred, yes. And
It's
and
been blurred,
I
and
want
it's
you to
more
talk,
fiction than
because,
truth.
yeah, I want you to talk about media lies and the power of media over people and how it affects people's thinking, or how it affects taking away people's thinking. What's your take on it, Lillian?
Well, if you look at how we have set up our corporations, our newspapers, news offices, and everything else, people have to understand that the people who are reporting the news, it's their perspective, it's their
Exactly.
take on what they see.
Yeah.
And they internalize it and throw it back out as not so much the news, because then everybody would have to stand on the side of a battle and watch it. The common story is when the police go and ask people who have witnessed a crime, no two story is exactly the same. And why is that? Because each person perceives it from their point of view, their experience level, what their external eye tells them, their brain will reformat. We don't need to blame AI for problems. Our brain is a form of AI, and it takes what we see and reinterprets it to how we ourselves as a person can come to grips with it, identify with it. And people don't seem to understand that.
Yes.
If you go to any news station, I don't care if it's NBC, PBS, whatever, the news stories are not the same, which I find fascinating.
Yes.
Because one, these facts were there, but the people who are reporting it aren't seeing the same information and then bringing it to their brain in the same sequence, so that each story presented by that reporter, whether it's international or domestic, is going to be different.
And I see that in America, or in some countries that I've visited, I told you I've visited many places. Countries, can I pose this question to you, Lillian, with a simple, direct answer? The more in America, if America is a democracy, the more media channels there are, the more freedom of reporting, and the more reports, newspapers, media, it points to there is more democracy. Am I right there? As opposed to a country that has got only one national paper.
Yes and no. We're not, if you talk to the diehard politicians or historians, they'll tell you that we really don't have a democracy. We have a theocracy, which means that it's really
You've
under the
got
control of one person, and it's
a
not under the
religious.
control of the Senate or the Congress. I mean, it's the same thing that happened in Rome. I mean, they still had the council members who advised the dictator, or Napoleon had a parliament in France who could call the shots over him, even though he was still dictator. So there's a very fine blurred line there. The thing is that even in a controlled paper by one person, it depends where he or she is getting their marching orders from and what they're allowed or not allowed to say.
Yes,
so
yeah, exactly,
in numerous
exactly.
media, they now have what we call fact checkers on everybody who's running for office or as a political candidate or in the Senate. And they say, these are the facts, ma'am, and nothing about the facts. But are they? Because again, the people who are checking them has their own version of what should be said, their own agenda,
of their own leanings.
They're all being bought and sold on the open market. And the only people who are really speaking truth are the ones that are being shot, incarcerated, or they're going to be losing their tongue in the process.
Yeah, and because actually I'm just wanting to point the fact that there are certain I mean, if you go to countries like China,
it's just one of those things. So
they've only got one central,
Yes.
central media, right? One central channel, one central media. Anything that goes out to the public got to be like in a particular fashion, right? It has to be approved by the top, from the top.
Exactly. I mean,
from the top to the bottom.
The way it was
yeah.
back in the 18th or early 19th century. It's changed, and it hasn't changed for the better. Yes, we're more kept up to date. You can get news 24/7. But if you go back to the Orwellian 1984 society, is it really the truth? Or is the truth that they're spoon feeding us because they know we want to hear that is what the version of the truth is being presented?
Or the brain has become lazy.
The brain has become lazy. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I want you to talk about, something that I brought up last week. There are huge mechanisms that they want to keep the people stupid, right? Like what you say, Africa. And I don't think it's only Africa. I think it's very prevalent, but it's done in such a secretive manner that you don't even know that you're being kept stupid, or that critical thinking is taken away from you.
Our problem solving. Look at the school system. Look at their school system and how they're being educated. They're not being educated equally. It depends on who's paying the most in property taxes, that school system receives the monies to be teaching your kid. Take a look at what happened down in Florida. They had book banning and burning, ladies and gentlemen, in the 21st century. Book burning. We don't want to read that book. It'll give our child a chance to start questioning us. We can't have that. They cannot think outside of the box we've created for them.
I love the way that
Come
you
on.
say, yes, don't think outside of the box that we have created for you. So just stay in that lane that you're supposed to be and just get pigeonholed. And if you start
Yes,
raising questions beyond that lane or beyond that little box that you're being told, you are being knocked down. You're being
they're
hammered.
still they're
And you're
still
being
fighting.
called the traitor.
Yes, I mean, listen to this, folks. They're still fighting about Adam and Eve versus us coming down from the trees as the great apes. They're still fighting about this. This is a religious question, and they're banning evolution from the schools and only to be taught about Adam and Eve. I got bad news for you folks. It was men who wrote the Bible, men, men. And they had their own version of how they wanted to make women and children subjective and dependent on the male. Propaganda.
That's very true. And last week we also talked about um you talked about women being multitaskers. Um, and what do you see if America has the first female president, hypothetically? How do you see the direction of your country, if that's what you are leaning towards?
I think that the United States needs a female president. I don't care what color she is. She can be pink with blue polka dots. I don't care. I don't care whether she has a master's degree or a high school
Or a
diploma
blue suit.
or a blue suit. And I
I read the
happen to like
news.
blue. It's my favorite color. But the
Yep.
thing of the matter is that men are afraid to see
Men are
women
afraid.
in power because it's the same argument that they used to make about people who were black, who were yellow, who were green. We're stupid. We don't have the same amount of brain genes in our head. We're incapable. Have you read some of the propaganda from the 19th century said by men regarding women? And you might as well be black or brown or yellow or beige, anything but white penis male.
So Lillian, I just want you to highlight. I like the way you put it. Because
I mean,
people have.
even Alexander the Great made a detour around an African country because it was led by a woman and he knew that she would defeat him in battle. So he skipped conveniently that part of Africa. Even the historians pointed that out, that he deliberately avoided and went around her country so he would not lose to her in battle. What does that tell you?
And so
If you're a
Lillian, yeah,
thinking person,
two questions now that you've raised, and you're talking about Napoleon. I want to hear your analysis quickly about the war that we're going through, what points from here, number one. And the other one is that, what's your take if your country is being led by a woman? How is it going to be different? Is it going to be any different at all?
I think it will be. Women have a tendency to look at things a little bit differently than men. Not all of them, but some of them do tend to put on the brakes before they jump into a duel after somebody slaps them in the face with a glove. Women tend to be more emotional than men are. But if you take a look at Margaret Thatcher, or you take a look at some of the other ladies, that lady in Germany who was prime minister,
Angela Merkel.
yes, you will notice
Oh, she was a steady hand, and she's got
that
she's so
they
well
have
respected.
behavior and attitude that
Mm.
it makes the men look womanish by the old def. I think it's house cleaning
House cleaning.
that needs to be done. I believe that if Michelle Obama had wanted to run for president, she would have been elected hands down. People would not even think about it
Really.
because she is superior and how she approaches her life. She has a different attitude. Why? Because women are stronger eternally than men.
Mm, mm, mm. How would you now think? You talk about, uh, yeah.
There's
How
that
would
saying, know how to internalize
Mm,
and deal out their, I'm not going to say hatred, their disagreement in a way that is controlled. They have better self-control.
mm,
Why? Because we've been put in as the caregiver, as the person who mediates between warring male studs. Women are more empathetic.
empathetic.
They're
Yes.
more compassionate. If a man shows this, he's labeled being too womanly.
Mm,
And even though of our races have been redefined,
mm,
you still hear the male chauvinist male say, "Stop it, you're acting like a girl."
mm. So
You
my
don't
question,
hear
yeah,
girls
yeah.
being told by their mothers, "Stop it, you're acting like a boy." They don't say that. Or why are single women who are not married still called spinsters? And men
Labeled. Yes.
are just called bachelors. When you say spinsters, everybody goes, "Ooh," but they don't go,
Yes.
"Ooh," when a bachelor remains single. Come on, the prejudice
The
and the
prejudice,
contempt that
contempt.
men have
Yeah.
for women are still there. And it's not
Yeah.
ever going to go away unless we take it out of their DNA and their genetic structure.
Yeah.
My
I like,
son did, and I just want to make one final point. My son was raised without a father until he's 16. He still grew up to be a male chauvinist. And it's because it's in those genes, in the DNA structure of what predominantly makes a man from when we came down from the trees, because a male gorilla, a male ape who is a leader or the number one person in the tribe and all the women are subjugated to him. Reminds you of the Mormons, huh? Anyway, moving right along. It's the same principle. And until you can get rid of that gene, you're going to keep on repeating that behavior.
I like to ask because you talked about contempt. You know, women in power or women who are seen as leaders who are more capable, they rise through the ranks in the corporate world or in the political ladder. They are always, not always, they could be seen with contempt by the male order, and then either seen as being threatened, you know, threatening
Men are
their
threatened.
position. Yeah, they are threatened. They
Yes,
feel threatened.
they are
They feel threatened.
threatened. I was told
Yeah.
when I was coming up through the ranks, I was too aggressive. Have you ever heard a boy
Mm,
being admonished by somebody saying, "Oh, you're too aggressive"? I was too assertive.
yes.
I talked, I reasoned
Totally,
like a
totally.
man,
Yeah.
and they did not like that. And we're
Yes.
talking corporate America. Or look at
Mm,
all the women in the military who've risen to the rank of general or admiral or
mm,
major.
Mm,
We have the capacity to
mm,
be equal.
mm,
There are women out there of fiction and of myth that were considered dangerous and powerful.
mm,
And why not? We are dangerous and powerful, but we have 5,000 years plus of being told that we are but an extension of Adam.
Lillian, we've got another couple of minutes.
That we were made from
Lillian,
his rib.
Lillian, we've got another couple of minutes. We are actually 59 minutes into the podcast. Lillian, I'd like you to share with us, in this encore episode with you, that I'm glad that we have you on for State of Our World. I like your take, looking at history, World War I and World War II. You knowing your history, tell us about your take on how this situation will unfold, and then tell us how dangerous we are, how precarious we are towards that third spark in the world. Because we did talk about offline, that you talked about the South China Sea and Singapore, and you talked about Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. Particularly, Taiwan is so close, has such a close relationship with America. Tell us about your take on what do you think the possibilities that will happen.
I think that the possibilities are endless because you're really talking about human behavior. Pride, vanity, arrogance, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The reason why Putin wants World War III with his Korean counterpart has nothing to do with anything except the fact that they are men. They believe they are entitled. Might makes right, and they want it. So they're throwing their tantrums, and they want it now, and they do not really care that they'll destroy a civilization that possibly may never come back again. Archaeologists and anthropologists through the dirt looking for them that came before. And they keep on unraveling their preconceived notions of a particular civilization that always astonishes them that they were wrong on their assumptions. Now, I was told a long time ago about assumptions. A history professor says, ask you me. That's what assume means. Don't forget it.
As you mean. So I like the point. Ask you me. So assume. Now I like the point that you say Putin and his Korean counterpart. So you think that the spark will actually start in Korea and this part of the world in Asia?
But it's true. And they're finding now that they're off the mark about the standing stones in Stonehenge. They have found standing circle of stones in one of the oceans that predates Stonehenge by 3,000 years. They keep on the ocean. They found a civilization out in the middle of the desert that predates something by 2,000 years. And the civilization and their was advanced technology. So you have to be very careful. They have made, when they've gone back to study the fossils or bones,
civilizations that flourished,
primitive man for the Neanderthals and the humans,
Mm,
they were off. They
mm,
found people smaller than the hobbits. They have
mm.
found giants in the desert of Arizona. You don't know anything, and it's shameful for people to make statements based on what they think they know as compared to what is.
Yeah, yeah. So on
And
that,
what
yeah,
is the truth.
I love what you say, the truth, and making assumptions and thinking
And
what
making
is,
assumptions.
yes, and thinking what is versus what is. This is really intense, Lillian. I'd like to come onto your show, Passionate World Talk Radio, to talk more on this, to talk to your audience directly, about some of the current affairs. I love to talk about current affairs. You're well versed in history, so I love to hear from you and get a good education from you through your knowledge of history. Lillian, I'd like to take this off, and pass the floor to you to wrap this up, for the next 2 to 3 minutes, Lillian. Podcast season, State of Our World, Humanity, for better or for worse. Over to you, Lillian, to wrap this up.
I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning to listen to Vicki Esther Chang and what she believes is going on with our corporate culture today, and also listening to me spout off my beliefs and thoughts. They could be wrong, they could be right. Just remember, everything
Your
that comes out
personal
is your
views.
opinion,
Yeah.
is your perspective, and everything, even history, is relative. So if you have a different opinion than us and you want to be
Write and comment.
the time and this is the place. You can contact me, and Vicki can also provide her email. Ours is PWR Network LLC at gmail.com. I need your name or something resembling a name. I mean, you can be anonymous. That's still a name. We need your email. And if you want to be text, we need your cell phone number. And of course, with your email, we can write you back and we can invite you to come on the show. You do not have to show yourself. We can put your voice on.
Yes, anonymous caller. I've got
That
a
way,
show.
no one will
Yes.
know what you look like.
Yes, I love
Or
that.
you can wear a Halloween mask. Everybody will think that's pretty cool. Masks do a great job. Or you can paint your face. My grandson is into painting himself. The closest he can get to tattoos at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. I believe it's called watercolors or water ink, whatever. So you don't have to show your face. We don't do truth or consequences on the air, not yet. So you can hear this all over social media, on Vicki's social media platforms, on PWTR platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spreaker, website, https:// Passionate World Talk Radio.com, and go and take a listen there with spinach.
And
You don't want to, but it makes you stronger.
Yes, spinach. Yes, and garlic. Right, ladies and gentlemen, comment below or write to me at viki@gdmeducation.com. And you can reach out to Lillian directly through PWTR, Passionate World Talk Radio. You can Google that, reach out to her, and you will find us on her radio, talking about current affairs, talking about state of our world, and a continuation of our conversations in her digital radio that is humongous. 100,000 people visit her website worldwide every week, and she's got 10 million listeners throughout the past 19, 20 years of digital radio, one of the pioneers of digital radio, and one of the pioneers for women in the digital world. So hats off to you, Lillian. Me signing off from Singapore, it's 10:47 p.m. I hope that our view of the world, that we view the state of our world, and we share our view to the state, to our view to the audience in our personal capacity as Main Street media, as Main Street people, in a way that it's harmless, not hurtful, and also respectful to the people. I hope that you enjoy that, and you should write to us about the most urgent issues in your world, be it poverty, homelessness, joblessness, hopelessness, or hope. A better world, a better mechanism for the world, and a better and how to leave the state of the world a better place for the next generation. So Lillian, I thank you so much. But this is not the end, right? Lillian, we're going to go across
Oh no.
to your Passionate World Talk Radio from next week. We will talk again continuously to educate and share our opinion with the audience in a humble fashion from across the globe, from US, Pennsylvania, and from Singapore. Lillian, signing off. Final words.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, and for the white elephants in the closet. Bye.
Thank you so much. So listen again and comment, write to us, and then look out for all this on social platforms, digital media platforms. Talk About Life, the Platinum platform, and wherever I am, Vicky Esther Cheng, and wherever Miss Lillian Cardwell she is. And we're going to be back here again next week. Bye. Absolutely. From Singapore.
Bye.